The patriots who believe deeply in the country, they all have wonderful stories to tell. It's important to capture that so that the American people understand that history is not just written with the admirals and the generals and the presidents and big decisions, but history is really written by individual soldiers, airmen, Marines, sailors, Coast Guard men that are out there serving their country day and day. That's really the heart and fabric of history. That's where all the context and where all of the content of what the human struggle is all about. It lies with the individual stories.
David Fix was stationed aboard a gigantic aircraft carrier where planes loaded with bombs took off on combat missions and landed safely back on the deck when they were finished. On the morning of July 29, 1967, as the planes were getting ready for an airstrike in North Vietnam, in one split second, everything took a turn for the worst as the lives of over 5,000 officers and enlisted men aboard the USS Forrestal were in danger.
And I finally got my orders, and I was to report to a ship called the USS Forrestal. It was an aircraft carrier, and that carrier was going to Nam. I went down to Norfolk, Virginia, which is where the ship was. It was tied up to the dock there. And I got on, and I was 19 years old. Never been away from home. It was just surreal. The Forrestal was so big that it could not go through the Soo locks down in Panama and then take the Pacific Ocean over. We had to go all the way across the Atlantic, around South Africa, up to Madagascar, then Korea, and then up into what we call Yankee Station in Vietnam, in the Gulf of Tonkin. On the morning of July 29th, it was, we were launching airstrikes just like any other day, and I was in the aft part of the ship, and I was about 3 decks down underneath the flight deck. At 10:53 in the morning, I'm walking in one of these berthing compartments, and all of a sudden, my head was on the ceiling. I had something happened to the ship. It was a loud explosion, and it just sank the ship way down, and I ended up right up on the ceiling and smashed my head up on the ceiling. And I said, what in the heck is that? So 10 seconds after that, I hear the general quarters alarm. That's where everybody on board ship has a place to go and a job to do, and they had to get there. Now, I'm 400 or 500 feet from where I'm supposed to be for the general quarters alarm. So I go down the starboard side of the ship, go through all of these places, and my general quarters station was in a stairwell right outside the sick bay. There was fire extinguishers and fire hoses and stuff in this stairwell, and a stairwell going up to the flight deck. So none of us knows what's going on. We thought we got attacked, really. I mean, we heard these explosions, one right after another, about 7 or 9 explosions, and every one of them just shook the ship and sank the ship down into the water, and then it bounced back up, and we didn't have any idea what was going on at the time. Well, up on the flight deck, what was going on was a rocket. We were launching airstrikes, and one of the planes up there had a Zuni rocket on it. This Zuni rocket dropped off the wing of the plane and ignited and took off across the flight deck. and it ran into John McCain's plane. John McCain was a shipmate of mine, and he was a fighter pilot. He was a lieutenant commander. This Zuni rocket ran into his plane, and his plane ignited. It hit one of the external gas tanks underneath the airplane, and his cockpit opened up, and John McCain got out of the cockpit and was sliding down the nose of the aircraft, and he took his hands and he jumped off onto the flight deck and ran about maybe 20 or 25 feet away from his burning plane, and it exploded. It had 750-pound bombs on this plane, and those bombs exploded, and the shrapnel was killing people. It was igniting other aircraft on the flight deck, and pretty soon, within 2 or 3 minutes, the whole aft part of the flight deck was on fire. We were down in our repair party, and eventually, and because we were outside of sick bay, they were using our stairway to bring the wounded down into sick bay through our stairway, and we were seeing all of these wounded guys, and it was just can't even talk about it, really. I mean, there were people that were just, I know some of them didn't make it. So we grabbed our hose from the stairway, charged the fire, and went up to the flight deck to see if we could help put this fire out. We had a destroyer that got up alongside of us, and they energized their fire hoses, and they were spraying up to the flight deck to try to put part of the fire out. And then we had a couple of helicopters that were taking the dead and injured, and they were flying them over to 2 other ships. All told, we lost 134 men that day, and it was considered at the time to be one of the worst naval disasters in naval history.